Okay, folks, welcome back to another podcast here with Your Ability. And for anyone who doesn't know, Your Ability is a free platform for all topics, and we cover everything from health, well-being, motivation, business, mindset, or anything and everything that you want to talk about. So it's presented by myself, Stephen Smyth, and proudly sponsored by TCTS Group Ltd. So this podcast, guys, is to give people access to organizations, help, support, connect business minds and open doors through mass networking. So our guest this evening is a very successful businessman, successful father, and more importantly, someone who constantly on a daily basis posts positive messages on the social media platforms such as LinkedIn. And this is where I got to know this gentleman. Now, definitely a perfect example of how your past does not shape your future, as we say. Anyway, you're very welcome this evening here. Mr. Aaron Watson, welcome.
Thank you very much. That was a nice build-up. Yes, I'm very well.
I was starting to run out of space there on the page, so it was, you know. So listen, we're just going to kick straight into it, okay? We'll just kick straight in. First of all, will you tell our listeners what it is you do?
Yes, absolutely. So I head up Jahn Media, which is an audio branding company, which specialises in the audio branding of telephone systems across Northern Ireland, Ireland and the UK. So for example, if you ring into a business and you'll hear, automated messages, thanks for calling, press 1, press 2, or when you're put on hold, you'll have a lovely sexy voice telling you all about the business with a bit of music over it. We provide all those voiceovers, and of course I voice them myself as well, as providing sort of Irish, Southern Irish, Northern Irish, English accents as well. We do of course do TV and radio ads and web videos and all that sort of stuff as well, but ultimately it's all about providing a service all year round to businesses throughout Ireland and the UK.
Perfect. And tell me, so all the services you provide, give us an example of the services you provide. You've already mentioned there the telephone one. In this day and age, is the telephone voiceovers a big thing?
Yeah, I mean, goodness, it already was, but now with COVID-19, it's just been mental, because obviously when you ring into businesses now, you can't just turn up at a restaurant, or you can't just turn up at a building yard, or you can't just turn up at a doctor's, or you can't just turn, now when you ring in, you'll have all these pre-recorded messages about new health and safety, regulations and new procedures that are in place, or maybe just messages telling callers that they're a little short-staffed at the minute because a lot of people are still furloughed, etc. So their calls will take longer to be answered. And then, of course, if you use the auto attendant, which is thanks for calling, press 1, press 2, press 3 for sales, 4 for accounts, then you're taking a lot of pressure off your receptionist. So it's freeing up more time for other things to be done. So, I mean, it was busy, and it's something I've been doing for a number of years, but certainly now during this COVID-19, it's people are really utilising the service now, so which is great. Although it's not so great that we're in the middle of a pandemic, of course, but we all have to adapt, and we all have to adapt to the situation, and that's kind of what we're doing.
Absolutely. And tell us, it's a very bespoke specialist sort of field. How did you get into that line of work? How did you fall into that or get into that?
I kind of always had an interest, even as a child growing up, in voiceovers and presenting and this type of stuff. And then I got involved in extras work when I was in my 20s, which is quite a while back now. Started to learn the trade and spoke to people within the industry, and worked hard on actually self-training myself in a lot of areas. Really just took it from there, and I think I got my first gig on the radio, actually Cool FM radio ad, and then we just sort of took it from there, and I've just sort of built, and thankfully doing very well.
And did you start off working for somebody doing that, or did you start a business straight away, or how do people transition in that sort of career?
Yeah, no, I mean, I did. Yeah, I started working for production companies, but it was more not an employee but you know, subbing you in really. Again, for the on-hold messaging, it was subbed in from a company in England. Whenever businesses in Northern Ireland wanted a Northern Irish voiceover, then I would have just provided the voice. But of course now I can provide the voice, the licensed music, do the editing, do the production, do the, you know, the accounts. We have the whole system set up now that we have people in place to follow it the whole way through now. Whereas when, of course, I first started, I just provided the voice. I didn't know how to edit anything. I didn't know how to, you know, add music to things, and you know, so you sort of learn your trade. And then, yeah, I suppose it's like anything, you keep building, and then, yeah, that's really how it happened.
And like, what made you start your own business then? What was the trigger point for you?
I suppose the trigger point was I wasn't probably getting paid great, in honesty.
You're looking to get paid at all?
I wasn't really getting paid fantastic, and I knew that if I was able to learn how to do the production side, and if I knew how to get hold of licensed music, and I knew how to do all the bits and pieces, you know, because obviously when you listen to a radio ad, you hear the voice, or on the phone system you hear the voice, but that voiceover wouldn't actually normally be the person that would produce it and license it and create it and edit it and debrief it and all the things that goes into place. So I knew I needed to sort of learn all that side of it, and actually I really enjoy it. I never knew actually how enjoyable it was. So that was kind of, yeah, I suppose probably the main part was, you know, it was more money, but also it enabled me to give up my job that I had, because I was only doing it part-time at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I knew if I wanted to progress, I needed to know how to do all areas of the trade and not just the one specific, you know, providing the voice.
And how long is your business going now, Jahn Media? How long is it up and going?
Well, Jahn Media now is going probably nearly a year, but of course I was working just on my own, just under Aaron Watson VoiceOver Pro for probably 3 to 4 years. And then, you know, we had other people within the industry that several times that wanted to become involved, but it really took the right people to approach me, and that's what happened last year. And now we have a small team, and it's awesome. Yeah.
And do you think, was it very important for you to you know, team up with people, or you know, to get the right team or the right support in the background for you to start your business, or to I suppose to expand your business, because you are expanded extremely well over the last couple of years, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I say this all the time, you need to have the right people about you. And I think when I first became a voiceover at the beginning, you know, I didn't have that. And then I got a lot of support from the guys at Creative 3, Chris and Henry. These guys, you know, really helped and supported me and gave me work and so on. But I suppose to break into the industry, which is technically it's the telecoms industry, isn't it? I needed to surround myself with the right people within that industry, and it can be difficult in any industry for people to want to give you the support or to help, you know, because quite often, you know, you want to keep a lot of things to yourself. And you know, and I did have offers before of partnering with people, but I knew that I felt that it wasn't for the right reasons necessarily. But yeah, whenever another opportunity came along, which I knew was right for me, and it was the right people, and had decades of experience within the telephone industry, you know, it was a no-brainer. And it's well, I mean, you've probably watched my journey over the last year. You can see that it's definitely different now to what it maybe was 12 months ago.
Yeah, but then the consistency, you know, one big thing in anything with life or business is about consistency. And when I introduced you at the start, I was talking about LinkedIn and social media platforms, and you're extremely active on LinkedIn, you know, with videos, and but your videos are very much messages as well. And you know, I was listening to you one morning, and I think it was in the gym, and you were on the phone on top of the machine as such, so I couldn't hear much of it. But I could gather that you were talking about balls, as in men's balls. So I
Yeah.
thought, what is this man on about? So can you explain that a wee bit for the people listening?
Yeah. So basically, when I was 22, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. So that was actually 18 years next month, believe it or not. And it was actually, I got the letter on the 13th of September randomly. And I actually remember, having the letter to go to the hospital. And of course, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. So now I had my testicle removed and I had a false one inserted. So we always crack a lot of jokes about that. But actually, that in turn enables me to sort of preach the story of checking your balls. And last year I got in touch with a doctor that actually saved my life. I never got to say thanks to him. So I actually met him. He's quite heavily involved with a charity called Friends of the Cancer Centre, which are based in the Cancer Centre in Belfast City Hospital. And basically I've been working alongside them now for the last year, raising awareness for testicular cancer, encouraging guys to check their balls, not to be embarrassed. Don't die of embarrassment, check your balls. We've reached I think we've reached about 3 million people. I did try to work it out, between advertisements of Cool FM, Downtown Radio, U105, double page spreads in the Belfast Telegraph, social media platforms, of course, and it just makes, I feel like I give a little back then, because for many years I didn't, but it wasn't because I didn't want to. It sort of scares crap out of you, and whenever you sort of you're clear of cancer, you want to forget about it. You don't want to go back into the hospital. You don't want to go near the place. It does scary. It does scary. It's scary. So yes. So quite often I'm preaching about checking your balls. If you've any lumps and bumps, speak to your GP and get yourself checked.
Yeah.
And don't die of embarrassment, literally.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's getting the awareness out, and with the social media platform and the social media following that you have as well, it's just every so often you bring it up on the likes of LinkedIn, and it'll send something to yourself and say, oh, all right, he has a point. So unless it's constantly coming out, people they forget about it. And as men especially, you don't want to talk about that. You don't want to talk about depression. You don't want to talk about, there's so much things that people don't want to talk about, and it needs somebody to lead the social media race, should I say as such,
Yeah.
But tell me this here, when we go back to the business bit, first of all, how tough or how easy has it been for you from a business point of view, with family and building a business and getting contacts and getting work in and serving customers? How easy or tough have you found it?
Well, you mentioned family there. Family-wise, 1,000,000% support. Absolute, complete and utter, nothing but support. Even when I decided to leave my full-time job and to, venture into voiceovers, try to anyway, full-time, my wife even said, look, don't even worry about the mortgage. I'll sort it. Whatever we need to do, we'll pull together. She has been, absolutely fantastic, and she still is. It's family, aunts and uncles. Sometimes people think, not necessarily, they're not actually maybe right all the time, but often people would say to me, especially in my family, if you're going to do it, then it's going to work. If anyone can do it, you can do it. But that's actually not true, because there has obviously been failures as well. But quite often people only see, that you're maybe doing well, but wrongly probably people would assume that, well, if anyone can do it, Aaron can do it, but that wouldn't necessarily be the case. So in terms of family, nothing but support. How tough has it been? It was deadly. First couple of years, I thought. First couple of years, you're talking, I made hundreds of pounds just. And I was doing it part-time, but I was 2 or 3 in the morning sending emails. I was on with Australia. I actually came across, just stumbled across the fact that St. Paddy's Day in Australia, they love the Irish, and even though I'm not Southern Irish, they didn't seem to know. So I ended up getting quite a bit of work for radio stations in Australia, and actually touched base with some production companies, and it just sort of started to, that gave me a lot of encouragement. But I mean, even back at home in Northern Ireland, I was just told no after no after no, and that's why I kind of went to Australia. You know, then even people within the industry, voiceovers, you know, I was a bit naive, I suppose, and was asking for a bit of help and a bit of support or a bit of advice, and they just didn't want to know. You know, I remember even on Facebook, in some group thing, you know, somebody was asking for voiceover, and I put my name forward, and then somebody else came along and said, I'm the go-to person. I'll never forget it. I am the Northern Ireland go-to person.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember I actually said to my wife, I said, that's rough to write that below my comment, you know. And I remember thinking, right, okay. So that's that really stuck a rocket up my ass, you know. And I thought, right, I'm going to really go for this. And I have worked my absolute ass off. I really have, and I still do. You constantly have to market yourself. You constantly have to market. I think everybody does.
Yeah.
You need to constantly market yourself, market your brand, put yourself out there, engage with people, talk to people, put yourself out on social media, go to events, talk at events. You know, all these things, even podcasts, all these different things. You know, never rest on your laurels. And quite often people do that. And actually, people have done that within my industry, and I've just snuck in.
Yeah.
You know, and I make sure that I don't rest on my laurels, because I could very easily then slip behind as well. You know, so
Absolutely.
that's
And you know, it's actually it's interesting the way that you talk about family there, and how much of a rock they are, because a lot of time family can hold you back, you know, dramatically, and it might be because they care about you too much. They don't want to see you in trouble. But one of the things with yourself, for any of the listeners that we have that don't know from your own background, because, you know, one of the questions I usually ask a lot of people that I have on, I would always ask them, you know, did your childhood have any effect on the person you are today? Because you know, a lot of business people I deal with, you know, daddy might have owned the company before them, so their childhood was all about, you know, motivation and building business and making money. What about your own childhood? Has it affected the way you are today?
I would say that my childhood hasn't affected me as to who I am. I would have said that. My wife would disagree. My wife would say that my childhood has made me the most incredible, strongest person that nobody could ever break down. Now, again, anyone's breakable, so that's not entirely true either. But I am incredibly strong, thankfully, because I know I could have went the other way. Because being brought up as a young child, my mum met a guy and married him, and he beat me often. I wasn't allowed out. You know, I went to school and it was locked in my room. I wasn't allowed a light on. I remember I used to read, funnily enough, and this I think has been a big help. I used to read hundreds of books. I mean, I read every Enid Blyton book, all the Hardy Boys books, Secret Seven, Famous Five, you know, all his kids' novels, hundreds and hundreds of books, and listened to the radio quite a lot, because I was locked in my room from 4 o'clock. And I used to read the books. I wasn't allowed to light on. I used to read them by torchlight under the duvet, and then whenever I heard your man come up the stairs, you know, quickly turn it off. But obviously now I talk for a living all day. I'm reading scripts. Sometimes I have to read them really fast, you know. So actually that has probably really helped me in my adulthood. But yeah, I would have been. It wasn't great, and I remember my mum saying to me when I was about 13, 14. You know, I just had enough. I hadn't told any of my family, you know, my granny, my granddad, and my aunts and uncles, or anything like that. I just couldn't take it anymore. And I remember saying to her outside crazy prices in our estate at the time. I can just remember exactly where it was up the side where the wee mushrooms were, and I said, you know, I can't take this anymore, Mum. You know, what can we do about this? And I never forget her exact words was, Aaron, one day you'll grow up and leave me, and he won't. And I think then from that day onwards, I knew, goodness, I'm on my own here. Even though I have quite a big family, you know, aunts and uncles and cousins and amazing grandparents who just lived around the corner, I didn't tell them because I didn't think they would believe me. And of course, if I could rewind the clock, you know, I would have told them a lot sooner. Now they did know that we didn't get on and different things, but they didn't know the ins and outs of it. So, you know, that was for several years. I can remember my head getting put through a window. I still have a scar at the end of my eyebrow. That wooden chair thrown at me. Uh, and actually, the godsend was I ran away. I was about 13 or so, and the police were called. My mum called the police, and so then I got found and all the rest of it. And the police interviewed me, and I told the policeman. I just broke down. And I remember he obviously must have asked my mum or whatever, and he took me to his house for dinner. I met his wife and his 2 children, and I told him everything, and he said to me, "You need to go and tell your grandparents," because I was very close to them. So I packed up a black bin liner and left the house and went round to my grandparents, knocked their big red door, and my grand opened the door as usual. "Well, son, well, come on in. How are you?" And it just, you know, yeah, I broke down and told them what happened, and they believed me.
And was your fear that they wouldn't believe you?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. You're talking, goodness me, nearly 30 years ago, when children were to be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
You know, I heard that saying, oh, goodness me. I haven't heard it in many a year, but I heard that saying, oh, so often. But yeah, my grandparents believed me. Within 1 hour, the social services were there. My aunt and uncles were there, and I was going into care and all this mad stuff. And my auntie said, "There's no way he's going into care. We'll take him." Didn't even discuss it with my uncle. It was just, that was it. And yeah, so they took me on, and fantastic. Still, you know, even now, you know, at Christmas, it's like a son and a daughter-in-law car she would send me, because she feels like I used to stay with them every weekend, and she would always say that she brought me up, and she would always call me her big son. So yes, it's a happy ending, I suppose, but it was horrendous.
And what age were you at that stage when you went round to your grandparents' house to tell them?
13, 14.
13, 14. And
about 14.
And how much of a weight was lifted off you? You know, was just in the case if anybody's, you know, listening to this who's under the same, you know, same sort of thing. First of all, obviously the message is go and tell somebody, you go and speak to somebody, but the relief that you got after it, you know, can you explain what sort of relief? Like, obviously I can't imagine it, but
yeah.
what sort of relief would you have after doing that?
Oh, it's just immense, because I stayed at my grandparents for about a week, because my aunt and uncle was getting everything in place for me moving in. And of course, if I had to move in straight away, I still would have been fine. But they had kids as well, and they had to speak to their own children, my cousins, and say that, you know, but they were all fantastic, and they would treat me as a brother now, you know. But the relief was immense as well, because I wasn't allowed to go out. I was locked up. You know, all of a sudden, it was Friday night. You were having the Chinese and a couple of videos from Extravision. You know, all this stuff.
Complete difference, just
like madness. Just didn't, couldn't comprehend it. You know, given a $5 on a Saturday to go out, getting a lift if I wanted somewhere, I would have said to my uncle, "Can I get a lift to such and such?" "Yeah, no problem. Come on." I was like, "Oh, this is mad." You know, so the relief and just the whole change in lifestyle, everything. You know?
And do you see? Can you understand how, I suppose, some young people go the opposite way and would take on, you know, because me and you talked about this the other evening, you know, take all that anger, because I presume you have a lot of anger towards certain people, or at that age you might have a lot of anger.
I did, yeah. No, I did. I was very angry. I was extremely angry. I can even remember being in my early 20s and being really angry, you know. Very angry, yeah. No, I am, you know, I actually seen him about 3-4 years ago, and it was at a family funeral. I have still no idea why he was there, but he was anyway. Fair play to him, like, because most of my family don't speak to him. But I can remember my cousins and my auntie coming over and saying, "You don't want to just stab him or kill him, whatever it was, you know, whatever it is you say, you know." And I was like, "Nah, I just honestly don't care. I don't feel nothing."
Yeah.
You know, and so I remember being told quite a few years ago that love and hate, although it's a different emotion, you're channeling nearly the same energies. Because you really, really love something, you really, really hate it. And I remember thinking, goodness, I really love my kids, I really love my wife, there's lots of things I love, and I'm not channeling the same, albeit a reverse energy. I'm not channeling that same sort of emotion into someone that I don't, have any real proper feelings for. So, but
So
if you speak out
is the main message there, yeah.
Regardless of whether you're a wife or a husband, or whoever, obviously there's lots of domestic violence that goes on, sadly, but you'd be blown away probably. You might really believe that no one's going to listen to me, or there'd be repercussions.
Yeah.
But,
well, I think also, when we talk about domestic abuse, there is a hell of a lot of bullying going on in schools, universities, workplaces, even especially workplaces.
Absolutely.
I used to work in the civil service, and it was just ripe with workplace bullying. Not myself at all, because it would have got out of hand very quickly. But when you have somebody who is more timid and more shy, and they take that day in, day out, and again, it's all about talking to people and getting it off your chest. But what I was talking about anger there, you would get some young fella maybe or young girl at 14, 15, 16, 17, up to their 20s, and they're so angry. And a lot of people always say that it's because of, their past or when they were younger. And, you're giving a perfect example of that. And nobody knows what happens behind closed doors, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, though, I was always fairly grounded. When I say I was angry, I got angry spurts, like maybe I'd had a drink and it would wind me up.
Yeah.
But I definitely chose. I can see how other people can go the other way, but at the same time, I think if somebody gives you that chance and that opportunity in life, then I'm sort of like, you need to be really grateful and thankful for it, and not think, oh well, where owes me a living, So I think I've definitely taken the attitude of being very thankful, and I always was quite driven anyway, regardless. I was driven anyway, and I knew where I wanted to not live. I knew I wanted to move out of the area I was in. I knew that I wanted to get away from the friends that maybe were in school. I knew where I wanted to go, and I knew where I wanted to be, even at a young age, and who I wanted to be around. But as a child, you don't have that control, really,
No. Do you think that came from all the reading books that you've done? That there was a better life out there was a better route to take?
Maybe I can remember being lost in books all the time. Like if you're reading The Famous Five or The Secret Seven, all of a sudden you're locked in your bedroom under a duvet, read torch, but all of a sudden you're in these fields exploring this house, and there's a robber coming, from across the canal, and so maybe you get lost in it a wee bit. Did it help me? Definitely, yeah. It did.
And tell me, what about daydreaming? There's a question that I asked. I was doing a talk a couple of years ago at a technical college, for automotive engineering, and we were talking about daydreaming. And when certain people are in school and they're not the type of person who wants to be in the class, they want to be using their hands, they want to be out doing physical work or manual work, and people call them a daydreamer. Is there any issue daydreaming, or is that how life should be? That you should have a vision and a goal, and dream about where you want to go?
I definitely believe dream big. Dream big and aim big. If you only dream small and you miss, or you don't get it, you're going to be very small. But at least if you dream really big and you miss slightly, you're still going to be up there somewhere, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I always try to be realistic as well. But I think, you need to. I believe anyway that to dream big and try and go, not just in business, but just in anything you're doing, just try and be as best at it as you can, rather than I'm not really a half-hearted person. I'm always, if I'm getting into something, I'm up for it, and I want to do the best I can, so
all in. And so how important is mindset then in business, or how important is mindset in life itself? Because you said there that you look on the positive side of things, and for I suppose between your childhood and the abuse and the physical abuse and all, and then going in then at a very young age to get cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And then for your mindset, as you said, not to become a victim, but to look on the bright side and build it. Is that all mindset, Aaron? Is that what that is, or is it?
Definitely is. I mean, I if you even ask my wife this, I say all the time, even to the kids, you need to change your mindset. That's something I say.
Yeah.
I think maybe, even after I had cancer, I was 22, and wasn't long after I had cancer, and my 21-year-old brother, then he was my younger brother, he drowned, and he had epileptic seizures, and I can just remember thinking, like, what the flip, like, it was just what else is going to happen here now. Thankfully, since then, touch wood, so that was the first 22, 23 years of my life. Since the second half of my life so far, touch wood, has, I've had two amazing kids. I have a wee grandkid. I've got my own business and my own home, and all these things. Not so fussed on material things, but from not having anything to trying to work towards different goals, whether it be owning your own home or having your own children or having a successful business or whatever. I think having those goals it's like you say, dream big. And I always dreamed of having a little girl, and I have got a stepdaughter, but I often tell her she's a pain in the backside. Just joking, like, but I often dream, I always thought would, and that didn't happen, but they told me after I had testicular cancer that I wouldn't be able to have any children, and they actually wanted me to go to a cubicle and store my sperm, which I decided against. And 9 months later, my second child was conceived randomly, So yeah.
Very good. And when we talk about mindset, there is it. Do you feel that because there's such a difference, Aaron, in people that they've either the mindset to keep going and getting things done and trying to progress, and then you have the other person that their mindset is just to stop and give up. There seems to be no middle ground. It's either somebody who's all in, or there's somebody who just wants to stop.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like, I would be all in, but I think sometimes as well you do have to. I do believe if you think you can feel, so sometimes you have to stop or give up, whatever.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you hear of many people who have maybe had a business or they've had whatever, and you keep pumping into it, but sometimes then that can just be silly because it's continuously pumping into it and it's not going to work. So, but I think a lot of people just give up. And some people can just be that close.
That's right.
And then you give up. So I think it's knowing, if you know what I mean. It's knowing
when to give up. What about do you have any morning routines or rituals? Are you into that sort of lifestyle, or?
Actually, at the minute, every morning I'm going for a 5K walk at 7 o'clock. Go to Starbucks, get my coffee. Now I should be going local, but there's no local coffee shops open at 7 a.m. So I grab a Starbucks, go for a 5K walk with one of the guys I work with, and come back, get myself showered and changed, have my breakfast, and I'm just sitting at my desk for probably 8:30, ready to rock and roll. And it's more of a routine, I suppose. It's not really a ritual, but it's working now in the summer months anyway.
And have you seen much of a change in your lifestyle, in your mental health, in your focus? Have you noticed any changes from taking up that 5K walk every morning?
You're just buzzing to get ready to go. You're ready to rock and roll, and before you know it, it's lunchtime. You're grabbing a coffee and a wee sandwich, and then but I think I would always be fairly positive anyway. I don't really need to walk, but I just enjoy doing it. you know, I just get up and go. I'm an early riser, always have been, even at the weekends. You know, I would like to be able to lie in to 9 o'clock, but can't do it.
It just doesn't happen. And what about so we talk a lot on your ability with mental health, and we try and highlight the fact, especially for men with mental health, and you know, it's the same for women, it's the same for mothers that's at home all the time, especially now during the lockdown bit. So from your opinion, how important do you think mental health is in both your personal life and business, especially business?
Yeah, no, it is important. You know, there is days where you sort of can think in business, you know, this is, you know, monotonous, or maybe you maybe have a quiet week, or, you know, whatever, but you know, you just got to keep motoring on, and certainly in my family life, there's not much bloody going on that you don't have time to think about about whether to be negative. It's just, you know, we usually have, now obviously with lockdown it's been slightly different, but we you know, with the family, we do try to do as much as we can. For example, we're going camping this month, toyed with going or not going, you know, obviously with the virus, but I think it's good to try and do stuff, because it can be hard. We have, you know, a 15-year-old boy, 17-year-old boy, and a 25-year-old stepdaughter, and a 5-year-old grandson. So it can be very hard for you all to do something together, because it's such a diverse range of ages. Teenagers can get bored, but so it's there's that much going on that you wouldn't have time to get down.
And one of the questions I always ask from a business perspective as well is mentorship. You know, do you believe in mentorship? Do you think people should have a mentor, whether it's on social media? Because as I say, you have a very large following. You have a massive following on social media, don't you? LinkedIn and where guys are following you, you know, you probably are a mentor to a lot of people as well. But from your point of view, do you have any mentors yourself, or do you link in with anybody for advice? How do you deal with it?
Yeah, no, I think what you're saying there, I don't feel like a mentor, and I do not feel like a influencer at all, but I do get messages all the time, which is lovely, of people that I've encouraged, or maybe people that I have motivated, or maybe people that, you know, follow my journey and can relate to it, which is, I get people to stop me most weeks, and it's mad. It's nice, but I don't see myself as that. But obviously, if people are following my journey, I'm putting my journey out there, so, you know, so that is great. In terms of me having a mentor, I don't really have a mentor, but I certainly surround myself with some pretty incredible people, and there is people I would go to for advice. People you would know on LinkedIn, the likes of Henry McCrory. I've had his ears burnt for many a year. I've even asked Gavin Wall about a couple of things, you know, privately. There's other guys there that I'm working with who every week I'm learning something new from them. So I don't actually have, you know, someone. I have never went and said, right, you know, I'm paying you 500 quid a month to mentor me, or whatever the case may be. But certainly, I believe everyone should surround themselves with the right people. And if you do have bad eggs in your life, and it sounds terrible, but I have done it, I've just got rid of them. And it sounds horrible.
Yeah, you just have to cut off dead wood. There is no, you know, there's no exception to that. I believe, anyway. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I hate saying it, because sometimes I think you need to encourage these guys more, but they're going to drag you down before you drag them up, you know. And I hate saying it. I always think it sounds horrible, but yeah.
You sound right. Yeah. And what about the likes of networking events? So as I was telling you the other evening, we were up at a network event in New Buildings in Derry, and we were listening. There was a couple of great guys there, and Chris Suter and all them guys. But I would have to say yours was probably if Chris is watching this, don't pass any remarks, but yours was probably one of the best presentations as such. And I think it's because a lot of people don't know your story. You know, first of all, they see you on LinkedIn, but they don't know what you do. They don't know what services you provide, and they don't know your backstory. So when you were putting that all together on stage, there was a lot of people, you know, hanging on every word that you were saying, and it wasn't scripted in any way.
No,
No
it
harm
wasn't.
to you.
No,
No harm
it
to you if it
wasn't.
wasn't scripted.
No, actually, you know, I done my first speech in the 10 Square Hotel, and then Gary asked me to come to, or talk, whatever you want to call it. Gary asked me to come down to Derry. Then that's what you're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And I just sort of felt, you know what, I'm not having to talk about business. I'm not having to learn about things and recite things off my head. I'm going to just stand up and tell it from my heart and from my head, from what I remember, and just my journey. And that's kind of what I did. Now, I probably did miss things out. Now, I wish I had said other things, and you sometimes get a bit muddled. And also, it can be a wee tiny bit emotional as well. So you're kind of like, oh crap, what was I going to say now?
Yeah.
But certainly sharing the story, my journey and my story at events, um, it helps other people, but it actually helps yourself too.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
is good. You know, I never spoke about a lot of this because I was ashamed for years.
Mhm.
And then now all of a sudden I can stand up in front of hundreds and hundreds of people and tell them the whole story. And actually the, the response from people afterwards, and other people's stories that they share with me and how they can relate and how it's helped and encouraged is blew your mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
You wouldn't think that you could possibly have that direct impact. I certainly would never have thought that of myself, you know. So
Yeah. And
uh,
it's amazing because when I do this thing here, you know, you can go onto any of our social media platforms and you'll not see much, you know, in the thread of it, you know, comments and all. But my phone doesn't stop with private messages after that. And people say, oh, I love that fella he had on, or I love what he was talking about. And then I'll go out on site with clients and they'll always give me a bit of abuse about, you know, putting up videos. But then they'll pull you to the side and they'll talk about something very serious, whether it's mental
mm,
health or depression.
mm,
You know, there's
mm,
so much stuff that then they talk about. And when they ask me that, I can only tell them my own story. I can only tell them my own experiences. But the networking is very, very important, I feel. And
mm,
the networking event where they get people like yourself up that has a backstory and then has something to say is far more productive than just an event. You know, a
yeah,
networking event where you give out business cards and you drink a coffee
oh,
and go
absolutely,
home.
yeah.
They're soul destroying, really.
Yeah, I mean, those events that I've spoke at, you know, they're all about trying to really encourage people, and I know a lot of people down that. Oh, we're going to go to this resilience event, or people are going to talk crap about this. But actually, when you go and you hear an actual person's journey, because I've sat and listened to some of the guys and I'm like, crap, didn't know that. Flip me, that's they've been through a lot and they've came through it, or maybe they haven't. Maybe they're still struggling,
Yeah, yeah,
but they're just sharing it. And it's just a great way to build relationships as well, not just for business. I mean, there's lots of people I've built relationships with, and you know, I'm not probably ever going to do any business with them, but you
yeah.
get to meet people that you wouldn't normally,
That's
which
right.
is I think is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And a question that I'm asked a lot, well, I'm asked personally a lot, so I asked a lot of other people, is there's a lot of guys who want to put up social media posts. There's a lot of guys who want to put up videos for their business, whether it's a side hustle that they have, whether it's their full-time job, whether they're trying to build a business, and they don't have the confidence to do it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and me and you are very similar to the point of we don't really care what people think at all, so we can just
Mm-hmm.
put whatever we want up. But we spoke with this the other night. People buy off people. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no point having your whole place branded and you know what company you have, but people buy directly off people. So I
Yeah,
think the video would come out very real. Would you give them any advice on that?
just do it. You know, I stumbled and stalled. You know, I'm not even on Facebook. I'm not actually a fan of social media, so to speak, randomly. But if you want to build your brand and you want to, you know, maybe encourage people out there, or let you know share your journey or your stories, but certainly with branding, and get on and do it. You know, because it took me many months to build up any sort of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even my first posts, I think I had one piece of engagement on it, and you know, it took a long, long time. And people need to grow to trust you and your brand. You know, it's not all about numbers. It's definitely not about numbers. But I mean, during lockdown, just on LinkedIn, I had about 3.5 million views on my LinkedIn platform all my content, but
yeah.
it's took a long time to get there, and I'm very grateful for it, because it gives me a great platform to, not just for business, but the people have reached, for raising awareness for testicular cancer, or raising awareness for domestic violence, or it's for a month, I think I campaigned like mad just about testicular cancer every day.
You did.
Um,
And that's the thing, you did to an extent where, although someone like me that follows you all the time, you'd be listening to it, but you mightn't take it all in. But because the consistency is there, eventually you turn and say, why is this man standing there with his hand on his balls? What's wrong with him? And it makes you listen. It makes you listen. You think, oh, now I know what he's talking about. So it's brilliant. It's brilliant from that point of view. Tell me, yes, we're on here just getting too long here, so I want to wrap it up. But last question here, Aaron, is what advice would you give to somebody who is thinking of going out on their own and starting their own business? Because this is something that, we talk about a lot through Your Ability, and I get a lot of messages about this, and I don't know why I get messages about this. I think it's more the fact that if we post something up and we're everywhere and anywhere, I'm out to London now, 6 o'clock in the morning. We just go serve our clients and come back again. And people will always ask, why do you do that, or how do you start it? So what advice would you give to people?
I would say, to go for it. I think some people are cut out for it, and maybe some aren't. But you are the same. I'm up at the crack of dawn. I'm not. I'm going to just sleep in bed for 2 days here. I work for myself.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You get more holidays if you're employed. I have my own window cleaning business. I was forced into that when I was like 22 after I had cancer. Job thing. It was a bit of a, that wasn't really working for me being employed, and I was a window cleaner as a 15, 16-year-old, earning some money just part-time. Set up my own business. It went very well, and then I kept doing that full-time until I tried to build up the voiceover, and thankfully, as I said, it's went well. But I've just always had that commitment. You need to be committed. You need to, get out of bed in the morning, get up and go, and if you have that fire in your belly, it's hard to fail. Don't get me wrong. Of course, you can fail. Not everything works, but give it a go. My wife's done the same. She worked full time in an office for 17 years. It was just blowing her mind. She always wanted to work outdoors, wanted to work with animals. I said, let's get it done. Let's get a van. Let's get the website done. Let's get the training that you need done. Let's get it done. And now she has got a waiting list the last 2 years of people wanting to come on board with her. It's
and I'll tell you, because I've seen the video you put up about that.
It's madness.
I wouldn't even know that's what you're up to at all. But just for people listening, give your wife's business a wee plug there, because it's actually interesting what she does.
Well, just very quickly, she's called Nanny Paws, and she walks dogs. So you're at work all day, your dog's in the house all day. So she goes and picks up all these dogs. We have a huge van with loads of cages in it. You can put as many dogs in the van as she needs to, within reason. And we also have our own private field, 4 acres, totally fenced off, 2 separate gates. Come in the gates, all the dogs run around for 10 or 15 minutes, pooing and peeing all over the place. And then they go into the big field and they run around and they're happy as Larry and all the rest of it. Then she drops them all off. Some get fresh water in the house, maybe a slice of ham, a bit of chicken, or food out, and then away she goes. And then when you're at work all day, your dog's been away. I was going to say an hour, but it gets an hour's walk, but it's probably away an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes by the time it's collected and blah, blah, blah. So now she's, absolutely loving life, and it just totally took off. We said after 6 months, if it doesn't work, we'll get rid of the van, we'll get nearly all our money back. And she stayed part-time in her full-time job. And then if it doesn't work, you just go back full-time. But I mean, six months in, that was it. And,
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
So tell me this, Aaron, for anybody listening, what's the best way to get in touch with you? Whether they're looking for voiceover services, whether they want to chat you, hit you up on, for a bit of advice, around cancer, or around, talking to somebody, or being abused when they were younger, someone that they can talk to that has walked the walk. What's the best way of getting in touch with you?
Just get in touch. My LinkedIn, obviously, Aaron Watson. You can get in touch via my website, www.jahnmedia.com, or send me an email, aaron@jahnmedia.com. Give me a ring, 07843 198 399. I think that's all the ways you can get hold of me.
So what we're going to do, folks, is we'll link all that down in the bottom, because this will be put onto our YouTube channel at TCTS Group TV, and then it'll be linked around our social media platforms. Aaron, thank you very much for taking the time. We're up to an hour now chatting. It's only like 10-15 minutes we were speaking. Thank you very much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it, and hopefully people listening have taken something out of it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyway, folks, thanks for listening to this podcast again. It will be up again on our YouTube channel, and we'll link it around through all of our social media platforms. The links will be down below for Aaron and his company, and do a bit of research and see what sort of voiceover he has been doing and who he's involved with. Anyway, folks, thank you very much. Stay safe. And Aaron, thank you again.
No worries. Thank you.